and 2 and 1.
Hey, welcome back to another brand spanking new episode of the Sheppard Show. We're going to talk about all things Airmanship 200 today. We're going to jump right into it, but before we do, we have to introduce who we are. My name's Ben, and I'm the video guy.
My name's James. I draw stuff for public affairs. My eyes red because Ben hit me before we started.
I am Sergeant Watts. I'm 364 MTL.
I'm Josh Gentry. I'm one of the chaplains here on base.
Sweet. So let's jump right into it. I want to kind of break it down and start with what is Airmanship? You know what? What is Airmanship 200?
It's got a cool name.
It does have a cool
I remember
name.
the first time I saw the name because there was like the blue poster with the. I thought the graphic was pretty cool. I was kind of offended nobody hit me up to draw it because I could have done a better job. I could have done a better job, but it's fine. It is
pretty good.
Yeah,
it is
but
pretty
the
good.
name is cool.
Yeah.
That's all I know about it.
So Airmanship 200 has existed for a bit of time now, and it was the way of the Air Force trying to get across the inside of what an airman needs to be able to do their work. But part of the problem that we found is it was so many different things all over the place that MTLs who were manned or were told to do all of it were in reality doing a very small portion. So Airmanship 200 as it exists today is our way of trying to get after what do we need from an airman, not only to know their job, but we need them to be core resilience. All right, and so that resiliency comes with comprehensive airman fitness. If we say that that's kind of the foundations for resiliency. And so we worked with brilliant people around the base, far smarter than ourselves, and put together a CAF-based training. The 4 domains that we say we need would be physical, social, mental, and spiritual. And we need to be fit in those 4 areas to be resilient holistically.
Are they still doing? I'm going to confuse everyone. It used to be like the 4 pillars of resiliency or whatever. They moved away from that. Now it's CAF.
They changed pillars into domains.
Domains. Same
Domain
exact
sounds
thing.
cooler. Sorry, I'm old.
Yeah.
The wording was older.
And I may be completely making this up, but my
Go ahead. Please
thought
do.
is domains allow them to overlap, right? And there's overlap between your mental and spiritual,
For sure.
between your social and physical. And pillars makes it sound like all these stand up in their own silos. Whereas if they're domains, we recognize that they do overlay with one another.
So what are we teaching?
So every single AFSC is going to be different because you teach them in different ways. But at my squadron, specifically 364, we teach, so the chaplains teach 1, big group airmen, and then they come to my squadron, we teach them 2. We teach them values, purpose, and meaning, and hygiene. I love teaching
That's
the
your
hygiene.
favorite?
It is. It is.
Hey, we needed
We
some
do.
hygiene teachers back in the day. Some of those guys did.
Bro, what's wrong with your eye again?
That's not a hygiene issue.
What do you wash your face with? tea leaf oil?
It's tea tree oil, man.
What's funny real fast to jump in with that is we were asking around base, we're like, what do we need to train? And every MTL was like hygiene.
Oh,
Hygiene.
dude.
Absolutely.
Hygiene.
Absolutely.
Like, they're 20. It's like, yes.
The smell of those dorm
Hygiene.
rooms still, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
I've went in a couple rooms that like I open the door, I'm dry heaving. Like I cannot eat before room inspections.
I'm good.
Yeah, that's
All
gross.
right, that's gross.
But so these modules.
But yes, so there are 9 different modules supposed to tie together so that we teach them how to be a whole rounded airman. So when I do the hygiene one, I'm like, hey guys, this is a sensitive topic. Everyone grew up different. We're culturally different. We're minded different. We wash our clothes different, wash our bodies different, etc. Values, purpose, meaning. We're telling them, hey, we have different values, different purpose, different meaning. Don't belittle the person next to you, etc., etc.
Sure.
And Sergeant Watts was really helpful in helping us create what was originally physical fitness, physical readiness.
Yes.
That got morphed into HPO, human performance optimization.
Oh yeah, which is a cool name. by the way.
It's weird though
really is.
because
It's not like a sci-fi
airmanship
movie.
falls under human performance optimization, but we also do like a kind of overview module of human performance optimization underneath airmanship. So those would be our 2 ones that fall more into the physical pillar. In the social, we've got relationships and we've got communication. In the mental, we've got emotional intelligence and stress management.
East
and then
Coast
we've got
versus West Coast.
the value, purpose, meaning, the ethics, and the character.
Yeah.
And those were, like I said, the foundation that kind of started all of this. Yeah.
Okay, and so can you talk a little bit about, this isn't another cyber awareness training or a PowerPoint lecture or whatever. Can you talk about like the setup of the classroom and how it's designed?
So it's designed to be max 25, max 30.
In an ideal world, it would even be a little bit less than that, but it's scoped and scaled in a way that you can do it, especially if you can utilize them in breakouts and like share and then like discuss and then share back. You can do it with larger scales, like Sergeant Watts mentioned that we do. The first week, I've had as many as 400 people over at the landing zone that will train, but also I go do it every week with 366 with maybe a couple dozen max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we do it, or when they do it in the classroom, they have 12, 15 max for a classroom. So you're able to break it up smaller. When when we do it at my squadron on Tuesdays, we have maybe 20 people in there. We're able to break it up. We're able to get personal. And even the PowerPoints that we have.
Personal about hygiene.
We need to. We need to.
Please, God.
When I break it up at my squadron, we break them out, send them in little groups, have conversations about them, tell them some of the myths that they've heard before, some of the things that they do. How do you wash? What do you use for your clothes? Is it healthy for you? Scent beads, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You don't think about not remembering that stuff. I mean, I remember in like basic and stuff, like guys didn't know, they had never done like a load of laundry before and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I go back to, because one of the best ways, what's unique about it also is that it's student-centric. And so it utilizes discussion. We've got different video clips and things that will tie in, but allows them to be able to talk with one another as well. So it's not just the MTL saying, here's another briefing, sit down and listen, but let's talk. Because I remember my sophomore year in college, my roommate was pledging with a fraternity, and they did this all-night thing. And his parents were paying to have his dry cleaning done twice a week. And our room stunk. And I said, come on, we're going to do laundry. He's like, I don't know how. It's like, I will show you.
I can't deal with
Here's a Tide Pod. And we're going to
Don't eat it.
This was during that time. It was like, let's talk about how you actually do this.
Yeah, man.
And if you catch it here, less people are going to have to catch it at their first duty station. I had someone at my first duty station who didn't know how to wash clothes, but his mom had done it for him his whole life, so he didn't need to know.
Right.
We're probably laughing a little bit about hygiene and things like that. So why is it important, and how does that affect them when they're in like a deployable environment?
So I know everyone's heard stories about how, I think the name has changed, but Beast Week, when you go through, a lot of people baby wipe showers. And you get 10 minutes, just take a shower. But a lot of people just aren't aware to do that stuff. And then when you get down range, if you're not actually showering, you're not cleaning your body right, you're not making sure that your feet are dry, it's going to impact you physically. And if you can't stand up because you forgot to change your socks or they're wet or something, that affects your whole body. We have to send you back, have to send a whole new person out here. For sure. Like it does a lot to you.
Yep.
This is attached and ties into Bracer Forage, which was our last episode. So can you mentioned Beast Week. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between Airmanship 200 and how it ties into Bracer Forage while they're here at Sheppard?
I think you're a little bit more versed on Bracer Forage.
Yeah, so to kind of go into why Airmanship, right? It's easy to do your job. I don't want to say easy, but it's a lot easier to do your job when nothing's going on, right? Yeah. You're here in the bubble, you're on this side, you're in a training environment, you're even stateside in your regular base, nothing big is going on. And it's one thing to do your job like that, right? I talk with the engineers every week, and I'm like, my dad's an electrician. In the civilian world, he doesn't have to worry about going and doing electrical work in a deployed environment where you've got enemy combat, right? So what does it take to be able to do your job when you've got word, we're in a war setting and you've got word drones are inbound? Yeah, right. Or you've got a phone call that something happened back home, even something that seems small is going to affect you a lot more. So how do we get that? For me, what I see Bracer Forge at is where your technical training and the airmanship side of things meet. And so we manufacture stress. We put you in a situation. And so we've actually got one coming up, and we're involved with it. And we're going to talk some about stress management, about some ethical scenarios, about some stuff like communications that are all covered. And while they're in these little round robin stations going through and doing some of the Bracer Forge stuff, we're going to be dropping in some of the, hey, remember an airmanship in this? Like, in this situation, how are you going to manage this?
Yeah.
Right.
So how can we put you in that stressful environment to simulate it and see how you respond?
Captain Habib and Sergeant Hockaday, they were singing your guys' praises. Captain Habib specifically was talking about how, when they got kind of tasked to stand Bracer Forge up, he was already starting to mentally prep for like, okay, we're going to need chaplains for emotional support, things like this. And when they showed up to start doing that, you guys were already in place and handling business there, which I think is really good. That you guys are already like looking down the road, talking to each other, understanding like what, like it starts there. If you're not good at home, you can't be your best at work, regardless of what that is, whether that's emotional, spiritual, whether your eyes messed up.
Whether your eyes messed up. No, Hundy P, bro.
Hundy P, 100%.
That makes sense. You think about that. I was actually deployed with Captain Habib back when he was an LT, and he was amazing.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Good guy, good at work, good for morale. Like
good mustache.
Good mustache.
Nice
Incredible.
mustache.
No beard,
nice.
by the way.
You got a nice mustache too, Captain Gentry.
But Captain Habib's puts mine to shame. I'm just going to
I
be
don't
honest.
think I've ever seen one
Shout
more
out.
glorious than Habib's mustache. We had
Captain
the
Habib.
best facial hair last episode. Yeah, so a program like this, obviously it doesn't start out of nothing. You mentioned before there were tons of modules before that MTLs were having to teach, but they really weren't able to teach all of them because there were too many.
Exactly.
So can you kind of walk us through like how it ended up in the space that it is now, like where it started and why?
Like revamped.
Yeah. We've been going out to the different wings with 2nd Air Force. Me, one of my chaplain peers on our team, and Doc Davis from 2nd Air Force. We've been making these trips, and people are like, why the chaplains? Over 2 years ago, we started this journey by when honestly our wing chaplain Homequest got here, he looked at our team. He said, what do we do at Sheppard? He said, we train. He goes, and what do you think we should do? He said, train? It's like, right. So we started creating 3 spiritual pillar trainings that we call warrior ethos.
Yeah.
And those are made up of value, purpose, meaning, ethics, and character. And that was the bedrock of what we were doing. And we were teaching these on the quarterly down days for training. And we were training these in different scenarios. And squadrons would have us come in and teach it. And with our former wing commander, General Dietrich, we were talking to him about that. And he said, I like that. Why don't you do something CAF-based? And so we started working with other shmees around base to figure out, and we started asking people around Sheppard, if you're an NCO, if you're a supervisor of young airmen in an operational base, what do you need an airman to come in knowing?
Yeah.
Right.
And they're like, the things that I need is an airman who's not going to be in my office or the shirt's office or the chaplain's office 3 days a week.
So you took direct feedback to kind of form up the final version of
exactly.
this.
So
I like that, yeah.
So we started then pulling in different people from Med Group and from other places around base, like, okay, if we're trying to do this and we're trying to make it realistic, right? Because again, before it was like 27 modules.
Yeah, sure.
And some of our tech schools are 28 days. And it was being done by MTLs outside of academic hours. How can we make this doable and beneficial? And I'll tell you guys, we went through the ringer of different people giving their thoughts and inputs as we built this, and settling on the 9 modules. And then last year, I actually got to go to the LOA symposium with General Dietrich, who was our former wing commander, as he spoke about how Sheppard is getting after producing the airmen that we need. And he gave this amazing speech on it. And at the end of it, he said, and I've got a brilliant chaplain at booth XYZ, go talk to him. And I had 100 people come to my booth, and here's some of the stuff that I think we need. And have you considered this and that?
Yeah.
We took that into consideration. And this has gotten feedback from every wing and 2nd Air Force.
So that's what I was gonna. Is this a Sheppard thing only, or is this Air Force wide? Or
this is 2nd Air Force wide now.
okay, 2nd Air Force wide.
So 93% of the Air Force enlisted going forward will get these 9 modules.
Okay.
Between
And
our
then-
5 wings.
And then, not only that, Sergeant, you mentioned that that it doesn't just. It's not just Airmanship 200. It's throughout their entire career.
Yes, you're supposed to get another level of airmanship every time you go to PME. So you're going to get an ALS, you're going to get it at NCOA, you're going to get it when you go to senior enlisted,
And so,
all of that stuff.
So what's the difference then? I guess between, obviously we're beyond hygiene at that point or
Yes.
whatever. So, what's the difference then? Do you know if you know, or are you focused only on 200?
Right now we're focused on 200 because we have the AITs.
Okay, yeah.
But when I went to ALS, it was more. Specifically hygiene is how to talk to the stinky kid, make them feel good, how to be a
Right.
supervisor, how to pay attention to the people under you and
There's always
see
one.
what they need, and then how to still take care of yourself while taking care of the other people as well.
What is unique about it is when we were doing this, we did work with 2nd Air Force and the Home Center. Is it the Home Center? With 100 and 300. The people who own those, to make sure we weren't just doing the same exact thing, and to make sure it made sense. But there's 100 to 900, and all of the others are built off of, there's I believe 24 core competencies that my vector states an airman needs.
Gotcha.
The others are all built out of that.
Gotcha.
This is the one that is built at what is the resiliency skills you
Yes.
need. And so for some it would be, well, why this? And for us it would be, why not? If everything else is building on those, let's also, they just got some of that at BMT, and they're going to get that at FTech. Why not for this one? Let's hit it
and
the
it's almost
resiliency.
like the approach is almost, this is a preventative thing versus a reactive thing.
Absolutely.
So, if they're in some sort of crisis or, experience some sort of trauma or something, that they have the tools, hopefully they have the tools to be able to react to that and then continue to fight.
Most
Yes,
definitely.
especially
complete
at the time when they're coming through here, because a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you're young. How many problems do you have?" Like, a lot of these, you just left your family for probably the very first time. When you're in basic, you get all your stuff taken away from you. You get back here,
you do.
You get a little bit
And
of
they
it
do
taken
mean
back.
all your stuff.
All of it, all of it. And then you get back here and you start getting little freedoms back. And anybody who's ever known anything about people in the mind is, you get a little bit of freedom, you want all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the stuff that you need, being away from home, whether it was a good home or a bad home, and meeting new people, and maybe the new people are mean, maybe they're nice, and just how to navigate that. It's something they really need.
And really, one of the things we're trying to get at with that is, for some of them, like Sergeant Watts mentioned, that it may not be there yet, but if we can raise their self-awareness, studies show that you don't become self-aware of what's going on until your late 30s, maybe even your 40s. At that point, it's too late.
James still isn't aware yet. How old are you now, dude?
It takes me a while.
Hey, the frontal lobe, it doesn't grow at the same
Read
rate.
between the lines.
If we can hit that, though, for a younger airman,
Yes.
then we can, this may not be something that comes up for 10 years, but hopefully there's some of that seed that's been planted
For sure.
of what do I need to do at that point.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of genius in the looking down the road at that and it not all being reactionary. That's being able to identify a problem before it's actually a problem and start working on that is not how we've always done things. I was going to say, though, it sounds like a lot of this stuff, which is so often the case, is stuff that the Air Force was already doing or at least trying to do, and maybe we hadn't put the intention toward it to focus it, and now it sounds like that's what's happening. I mean, even when I was in, there, if somebody was the stinky kid, somebody had to go talk to that guy. Those kinds of things were already happening, but they were reactionary, and there wasn't an intention behind training on those things prior.
Here's a fresh pack of shirts and socks just laying on your bed.
Right.
Take a hit. Hey, take a hit.
Yeah.
But-
So now it sounds like there's a focus and intention behind it,
Yeah.
which will make it successful.
But before we go on, let's take another break because we've only done one break. And when we come back, we'll pick up where we left off. Hey, welcome back. We're picking up where we left off with Airmanship 200.
Let's talk about shoes.
Let's talk about shoes.
Let's talk about Jordans.
Yeah. So
Sorry, you gotta say it over again.
no, you're good. The way that I like to explain this a lot of times is I'll talk with the airmen. I'm like, what's the most iconic pair of shoes in the world? And they'll say Jordans. I'm like, and what are the most iconic pair of J's? And oftentimes you'll get the airman who's like, the 3s, the 4s, the 6s.
Yeah,
I'm like, not what's your favorite. What's the most iconic pair? The top selling Jordans of all time are the 1s. And those came out, the prototypes, in 1984. Full release in 85, 40 years ago today. Roughly 13% of the NBA wears Jordans, and not a single NBA player wears the 1s. Yeah. Because you can get them in any color, right? The breads just came out and they look nice.
They do. Kevin Gentry's a sneaker
but
dude. That's what's up.
I know. I was like, I don't know anything about.
I want to talk to you about shoes after this episode.
But they look good on your feet if you're just styling them with an outfit, right, to go down the street. But NBA players don't wear them because the core support, the structure, the integrity of that shoe has not been updated since the initial pair came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that Save the Last Dance, or not Save the Last Dance, but The Last Dance, the Chicago Bull, when Jordan wore the old shoes for when he came back, and like the behind the scenes as he's leaving, he's talking about like, I got to get out of these shoes, man. I can't even feel my feet.
If you've ever worn a pair of 1s, they look great, and they are not comfortable. Like, we don't want to produce airmen who look good when they're walking down the street, but they can't actually lace up tight and perform in the game.
That's a good analogy, sir.
So for them too, well, to relate to them too.
Yeah.
So how is the training being conducted then? Is this like a 2-week course? Is this throughout their time while they're here? Because as you mentioned, some of the schools are short, some of them are longer than others. So how are they able to receive that and
it's
retain
all
it?
CBTs.
I'm
just kidding.
Luckily, no. So it's actually down from 2nd Air Force now that it's all required while they're in technical training. Okay. So I know specifically for my schoolhouse, they do it all here, and they can come back for TDYs if they need be. Other schoolhouses, they do it half here, half somewhere else. So that was a lot of challenges we had to go through. We were sitting in the conference room for like a year trying to figure out how it works for different schoolhouses, for different bases, etc. And they have to get all 9 modules before they graduate tech school. And whether that's their 30 days here
POL.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's my schoolhouse.
I think it's like 30 days or something.
It is 30 days, yes.
I don't know why I know that.
The fundies there's certain crew chiefs who are only here for fundies and they're out. And there's other crew chiefs who are here for another 3.5 months. And we're like, okay, well, all of them are in fundies together. Yeah. So do we give all of them 9 modules right away, or do we figure out the ones who are only here for that and then the rest we spread out? Because ideally, you hit back at these reps and sets throughout their time. But we also recognize that we can do ideally all we want, but it's not that way, right?
It's almost never ideally in the military.
Never.
Sadly.
Captain Habib had mentioned when, his final, we talk about best case, like what's the best way to do bracer forge. Right now it's quarterly. It's not fully implemented. And he was basically like, I would like for them to go, like best case scenario.
Was that him or Hockaday?
It might have been Sergeant Hockaday.
Yeah.
Sorry. But they'll go through their entire training here, and then they'll basically be a week or a 2-week add-on to the end of their training for a bigger bracer forge
kind of
exercise.
like Beast Week. But like if you had a dedicated space with dedicated instructors, tech school's over, go kind of like F-Tech, I guess. Go over here and you're going to do this Airmanship 200 and bracer forge. Maybe it's a 2-week thing where you do Airmanship 200 for a week, and then at the end of that do bracer forge. I don't know.
But was that something that, I guess the same question is, in a perfect world, you have infinite resources and time and all of that. What would you choose?
I wouldn't want a week because it's oversaturated. However, the PowerPoints are very something for you to look at. It's more talk. It's more in the moment. But doing a week long of just sitting down talking, it really depends on the situation. It depends on really like your age, how much EI you have, how much emotional intelligence. Because I've sat in a week long, 2-3 long, and be able to talk about it and share my thoughts and feelings and such. When you're 17, 18, you don't want to do that.
For sure.
Yeah. Want to play PlayStation?
Think in an ideal world, right, you can space it out through their time here. But one of the things that we fought long and hard about, and we'll see what ends up coming about, but our thing is like, this is a part of training. If we're developing the airmen we need, we don't just need them to be able to change a tire,
Right.
but we need them to be able to stay healthy and resilient to change a tire, whether they're going through a personal crisis or a professional one.
Yeah.
And so if we can space that out and it's put into their actual training, we show that this is valid, not just something on the side, right? My boss gives the illustration that his wife grew up on a farm, and they would, go, and Thanksgiving was a massive thing, and you'd have the main stuff here, but then you'd have all these little side plates with the side dishes.
Sure.
We want this to be a part of the main thing. We don't want this to be a side dish, but we want to bake it in to show them, and then hopefully it can be something that, you don't do the training 3 times if you're here 4 months.
Right.
But you can reach back into it at times. We've even, here at Sheppard, it's part of, if an airman's phasing up, it's, hey, how are you doing with these calf resiliency pieces? Let's talk about it. This is something we can try to measure.
I like that, because the way we were comparing it was basically the Airmanship 200 is more, what did you say, soft skills?
Yeah, soft skills.
Yeah.
Softer.
And then Bracer Forge is almost like a caps. It's more tactical. It's more, combat oriented, stressful. You have to be a crew chief, but you also have to be a defender now.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case exercise is. So if they're learning this throughout their training, and then let's say perfect world for Sergeant Hockaday, they have their week-long Bracer Forge exercise. They're able to pull from the training they've already received in addition to their technical training, and then apply that as part of the Bracer Forge exercise.
We were kind of joking about like our society being like obsessed with like, you can drop in some cool footage of like in the 70s and 80s, right? All the action.
It
was like the best cop.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, the best cop in like the department was
yeah.
alcoholic. You know what I mean? His life was on fire.
Waking up in an alley with
he like
newspapers.
wakes up under garbage in his apartment, and but he's the best cop.
Fighting crime.
But that's not reality. Like the best cop in the place, his personal life is put together so that he can focus on his job and be the best that he can be. It's maybe not
Family's
as
good,
interesting
house is good, car's not breaking down.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't stink. Your eye is fine.
Yeah.
Man.
But we're gonna get a super close up with that when it's all said and
I
done.
don't care, man.
I know.
Do you need to talk to a chaplain?
Right?
I think I'm a medical professional, sir, but thank you. I already did.
I do like what Chaplain Gentry said about having this in the training environment, mainly because when I think about these soft skills, because I'm from the flight line, and my last base was Vegas, so I'm from a hot flight
that's
line.
my hometown. No big deal.
Shout out
Hey,
Joe. Our
it's
buddy
nice.
Joe's there.
Yeah, hey Joe.
And
Hey
Nellis.
Joe. Nellis, yeah. So I was all the way down at the end of the flight. We went with the helicopters, and we're rescue. So when someone needs to be rescued, you go rescue them. That's it. Like, you can't wait. You can't do this. So I need everyone to have these soft skills. That way, like, if your life is falling apart, which I really hope it's not, but if your life is falling apart, you can also make sure that that what needs to be done gets done.
Free fall,
so that helicopter
baby.
gets
Free
up.
fall,
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time in our office about like how valuable it is for me as a person, but like just working with people like that. I think as your career goes on, you see that where maybe you don't even know, right? But about maybe your coworker, they've got something going on. But when we're in free fall, like when it's happening, we gotta focus on this right now.
Yeah.
I'm here for you, and we can take care of that after, all this has calmed down. But right now, today, in this moment, we got to fix this right now. We got to go rescue this guy.
Priorities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier one of your first experiences with Airmanship was our logo.
Yeah.
If you see the full one, you've got the male and the female on either side, and you've got them in civvies, and then they're going through BMT, and they've got their Lackland laser, and then the last one, they're in like their battle rattle, they're in their full kind of like, let's go outside the wire gear, and they're standing on that rock, and if you look, it's got the 9 modules, but in the background there's like a darkness, there's a storm looming over them, and both of them are standing there like with that torch, and that
It's very
idea
symbolic.
is that these are the things, like, storms are coming in your life.
Always.
We've all been
Yes.
through them, personal and professional. And so when those things come on, what are the things that you're going to stand on to help carry you through it? How are you going to manage that stress? What are the values and the ethical right and wrong that you're going to turn to when it's like, hey, we like to think of life as black and white, but usually we exist in the gray. How do we
Absolutely.
function in that? And what is the thing we're going to stand on? And we're trying to say these are maybe not everything, but this is a strong foundation that you can rest on to begin with.
I wish
Absolutely.
someone when I was younger, had told me certain things that just like I have sons, I have boys, 4 boys, things that
Bless
I've
your
told
heart.
them
Sheesh, right?
that I've learned about, like when you're young, I had kind of conceived this notion that like happiness would be this place that I would like arrive, right? Like I'm gonna accomplish these things, then I'm gonna be in this place, and then I'm gonna be happy. And as I've gotten older and gone through things in my life, you realize that like happiness isn't really a place you arrive. It's a spot you can spend some time in. Then the storm's coming again, and you have to kind of batten down the hatches and realize that this is gonna pass. You're gonna get through this. Happiness is coming again, but it's not. You have to maintain all of that at the same time. There's all these plates that you have to spin and balance in order to keep that all together so that you can be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will not be, and it's okay not to hate yourself in those times and realize that that's a moment. You're going to come back out of it.
Yeah.
But
Happiness-
nobody,
That was really deep, James.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
But nobody told us that when we were
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
Right.
Happiness is also a mindset too.
For
'Cause,
sure.
One of my airmen asked me the other day, like, "Hey, do you guys ever asked all the MTLs, like, do you guys ever feel stressed? Do you ever feel overwhelmed?" And we're like, "Yeah, like maybe
Like, am I a person?
5 days a week." And they're like,
Have you met
"Wow,
some of your
right?
fellow wingmen?
Do you see who I have to deal with every day?" And they were like, we were like, "Yeah, like 5-6 days a week." And they're like, "Oh, what do you guys do?" And we're like, "Oh, well, we do these. These are our stress relievers. I hang out with my friend. I hang out with
Yeah,
my dog. I
yeah.
play video games.
Yeah.
Whatever it is." I was like, you all need those because you're going to get stressed.
Yeah.
I was like, if you get to a certain point, you're stressed 6 days a week. You need to know how to relieve your stress. You need to know how to do things that are fun. And you need to learn how to leave work at work and home at
Yes.
home.
That's
Yes.
a huge
The
one.
light switch.
Yeah,
That's how I
that's.
compare it.
I talk about that with the airmen. It's like you remember in like 3rd grade, and you got that nutrition pyramid. It says like eat a lot of broccoli, don't eat as much Mike and Ike's, and the problem is those taste a heck of a lot better
Right?
than the broccoli.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got these, we call them resources, and I don't mean like helping agencies. I mean like for me, chaplain, right? But my baseline's my faith. But then like that next tier, my family, my closest friends. Above that, my favorite hobbies. Like, and I joke, and I'm like all the way up to the tip top. Like I enjoy a cigar a couple days a week, but I was like the greatest TV show ever invented is The Office, and
Mash.
Sailor
the
Moon.
Office isn't going to get me through like the deepest things in life, but if I've just had a long day, at the end of the night I go to the gym, come home and shower, and I'll watch an episode of The Office just to clear my head and go to
100%,
bed, and it's
yeah.
just like a reset button for me.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that works. And having these different things to go to is important, and knowing what those are, because I've got a teammate who's downrange right now. I'm a Texas boy at heart, and I love barbecue. No one's letting me take a Traeger on a deployment as much as I'd like to.
Just need a little Weber grill,
Right?
man.
If that's where everything falls, or what does Chaplain do every time he goes and he smokes his dinner or whatever? It's like I can't do that when I'm
Yeah,
downrange.
right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having these different things you can go to is important.
Yeah, no.
I know that there's been focus on that too, but about just being good wingmen and paying attention to each other. But that's another thing that Ben and I talk about in our office a lot is just like the average person. I mean, I don't think it's out of line to expect that in an average work week, you're probably going to have one bad day in there. That's just like, you're not your best. It's not awesome. And we always say that, like, you get one bad day a week.
Yeah.
Like, you get more than one bad day a week. Like, maybe there's something else going on. But you don't really notice that as a wingman unless you know the people that you work with because you care about them and you're paying attention to that. And I think all this stuff speaks back to that. Like, if you're practicing all of these things that you guys are teaching them in Airmanship 200, it's opening discussions so that you know more about the people that are working with you. You're invested in them. You may only have a short time with them. That's the saddest part of the military, right? You
Yeah.
fall in love with these people throughout your life that are like your closest friends, and then you leave them. But that's just kind of the nature of it. You got to
Yeah.
be paying attention to what's going on with each other.
Yeah.
Nature of the
Pay
beast.
attention.
Uh,
I can't think of anything.
let's take a break real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll probably wrap it up.
Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the cool stuff that we made there. I probably made all of it. You didn't help me with any
Yeah,
of
okay,
it,
buddy.
as it usually stands.
Heavyweight, low reps.
I wanted to ask about, so you guys have been doing this for a while now. We always talk about like leadership and how leadership. I say we always talk about that. We always talk about that. Maybe not on air. Leadership should be a resource. You should not be afraid of your leadership. What a lot of times your leadership is looking for is like, we're afraid. They want an answer. Like maybe they don't know that you need support in a way because you haven't shared it because you think that's out of line. So like, are you getting the support that you need for this program? And if not, what do you need to make it the best that it could possibly be? And then I'll have a follow-up question after that.
So I'll go first because your leadership is a bit higher than mine. So just in my specific scope, my flight chiefs were perfectly fine with me going to all the meetings. We had a conference here at Sheppard. They were perfectly fine with me taking the whole week to go to that conference. My commander loves that I'm doing this. So
because you're just doing this because you're awesome. There's not like extra incentive.
I really am. I'm glad you noticed. Yes. I love doing stuff like this. But yeah, I just doing it because I like it. I taught all my my MTLs in my area, and the way we teach is they watch one and then they teach one, and while they teach one, we watch.
Oh, that's cool.
That's very Navy like. Oh my god!
Each one teach one.
I had to get it in
because everyone's going to teach it in a different way. We want it to be however you teach. We want it to be personal to you. So I'm not going to teach anything the exact same way he's going to teach it.
Right, sure.
So my specific scope, it's been amazing. Like everyone is like, what you need to do to make the airmen better, because they're going to replace this one day. So my overview has been absolutely great. I'm getting all the support I need, and I'm getting out there and getting what needs to be done.
Nice.
Yep. As this was being built, I'm scared for what's next, because the support and the resources we've gotten here at Sheppard has been second to none. Our leadership from the wing commander down has been bought in since day one, and that's been amazing. To get to do something that has impacted not just this, but like we said, 0.1% of the Air Force. If we're throwing around the number that's on 2nd Air Force's website, like this is going to have a huge reach. Like all of the enlisted airmen going forward will be coming through this. And as we built it, we had the support, we had the resources we need. I think what's next, and I think this is above a lot of heads, but we've got people that are trying to put this into their actual CFETPs.
What does that mean? 10 times fast.
Career Field Education Training Plan. That sounds right.
I'm not in the schoolhouse. That sounds right.
I'll agree with it.
That sounds official.
That's what it is now.
From the CFMs down, it's like, hey, this is what what a crew chief, going back to the crew chiefs, this is what a crew chief needs to learn in tech school. Yeah. And we're trying to put it in these different places where we can then make sure that they are fully resourced as well. Because one of the problems going back to the original is we gave a team of MTLs, and I know my team maybe isn't fully manned, but obviously our MTLs are with nothing else to do, right? And we'd say, here's 24, 27, whatever it is, different things. You've only got evenings. They're hungry. They're tired. They want to go do other stuff. Have fun. We've given them facilitator guides and PowerPoints and bullet background papers and given them the resources they need. Now, what we want to say is, let's put our money where our mouth is and say that this is actually crucial for the development of airmen.
Yeah, right.
And how do we get about that so that the schoolhouses are also manned, so that this can take place with the MTLs and with the instructors, where we don't just say, MTL, this is your job, and instructor, this is your job, but how do we blur those lines to say we're all in the job of developing airmen?
Intentional. Being intentional.
Because if you're teaching them the military side of things and this resiliency, well, I'll never forget one of my first counselings here. I had an airman come into my office. He got an LOC because he was told to cut his hair and he didn't want to. And he comes in my office crying, and I was like, well, buddy, I mean, you are out of regs. I don't want to be the mean chaplain, but you are out of regs. We can talk about you being sad, but you need to get your hair cut. What if, and I'm not saying that airmanship would have fixed that, but how do we get some of that core stuff down to help with that, where now the instructor and the MTLs, they're not enemies, but they're on the same page.
Yeah, for sure.
And hey, remember, didn't we talk about hygiene, and didn't we talk about stress management and these kinds of things? And you did that with the MTL, and then remember when we did this in the schoolhouse, so the MTL can be like, hey, you've been struggling with this part of things and whatever it is, but didn't you talk about that in your... I know you talked about that with your instructor, so what's going on? And we can all be a part of the business of building the airmen we need.
Yeah.
So I think that's important, but I don't know, that's something beyond just what we can do. And I know that we've got some incredible people here and some of our leadership on this space that's interacting with their career field managers and other people to say, how can we make this happen?
Yeah.
And that's what people are trying to get after, that I don't know how to fix, but I think needs to, so that everyone can be a part of this business.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way it's going to work, right?
Yeah.
It's intentional and buy-in by people even after here.
Yeah.
There was kind of an old school mentality of like, I always hated that because I didn't understand it. I joined when I was very young, when I was only 17, but it seemed like every section of like PME that I would get to, whether it was stated out loud or not, and never in an official capacity, but it was always kind of like, forget what you learned because now you need to learn this. Like, we can't do that. We can't forget what we learned. Why the hell did we bother learning it then? Like, it should be a continuation throughout, but there has to be buy-in beyond where it's being taught.
But also, how many airmen are told when they get to their first base, like, hey, forget everything you learned in tech school?
Yep.
Because we're going to teach you how the job actually goes.
100%. That's exactly what happened.
And if that's what we're getting at,
and in tech school from BMT,
if that's what we're getting at, then why would we only focus on the technical training? If they're being told to forget that anyways, and I'm not saying that they need to,
right?
Yeah.
But we also realize that there's more that they need to know, and that their technical training is not going to all be finalized here. But we all need an airman who can work the job day in and day out with the stressors of life.
For sure.
And so we're trying to get after that, where if they have to relearn the job.
For sure. One might even submit, like you had kind of talked about it earlier, but is that more, like, would you rather have somebody that's more technically knowledgeable, but their life is on fire because they can't manage those soft skills, versus someone who's maybe not as technologically superior with their job, but their life is more put together? Like, you can teach skills as a crew chief to a crew chief on how to work on their plane.
Yeah.
If they can't keep it together outside of work, they're not much good to anyone.
I think that's how we sold it to a lot of our NCOs. We said, hey, is this your last base? Most of them said no. We said, you're going to be supervising these airmen in the future.
Sure.
Would you want that, like you said, that 85% airman who's put together, or that ACE award-winning airman who is in your office every other day with a new meltdown?
Right, because that's when he gets his hair cut or
and
whatever.
I'm not going to say that those things still won't come.
Yeah, right.
But how can we help curb and build that
Lessen
airman? Yeah.
Yep, I agree with you. Okay, so final thing, like, absolute perfect world, you can make all the decisions that you want for this, and you have endless resources.
Yeah.
Is there anything about this that you would change or implement other than like it continuing outside of here? Is there a fantasy version of this that you would build?
I like the way we have it put together. So I think the only difference in my fantasy version would be allowing it the time. Like Chaplain said, getting the CFE, getting school a little bit longer.
Nice.
CPCP. Getting the school 2, 3, 4 days longer so that they can actually learn these, so the teachers, that the instructors are not rush teaching them, so that you don't have to speed up something so that you can get these in, so that we have the proper time management, so that we're not figuring out where to fit this in, so that it just fits. Because if you rush them here, they're going to be rushed later.
Yeah. It's not really a process you can stop. I was going to ask, just gee whiz for me, are the modules kind of blocked out in a time format where like each one is supposed to be an hour to teach, or are they different?
We say roughly an hour, but there's squadrons on this base that do 90 minutes, and even a couple of schoolhouses that do 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it really, but anything less than an hour, and you're not allowing the airmen to discuss.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to argue that that's where a big deal of the actual growth and what they get out of it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
When we're actually talking with each other.
Yep.
I remember, not that officer training school was all bad, but that 6th time I heard that same China briefing, and it was like, but the second instructor was the best one. I'm starting to zone out.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Absolutely.
But if I can not be, stuffing my cheeks with Listerine strips to stay awake, but I'm actually getting to be engaged and involved with this, it's going to stick better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Perfect world. Would you change anything?
Man, I thought of an answer and then I started talking about that.
That'll happen. That will happen.
Got it.
Okay.
Perfect world for me, to go back to what General Dietrich said when he was our wing commander. He said, faster doesn't mean better. Right now, we've got this push that we need to get our airmen faster, faster, faster. And I'm not saying that some of our airmen, especially with the technical skills they come in with, that they can't be pushed and accelerated ahead with some of this competency-based training. But the resiliency side, and I came in as a chaplain. I was required to have a master's degree. I was required to have time in personal ministry. I came in really good with this cross side of things. I had a lot to learn with this U.S. Air Force captain side of things. And so even if we accelerate some of the technical skills, we've got to recognize that there's the military, the core resiliency, the professional side of things, the uniformed service side of things that they've got to learn. And to know that faster does not mean better, but trust us in ATC or ADC or whatever it is, that we will get you the right airman in the right time. That we're going to make sure that the airman that we send to you is ready to benefit you day one, to contribute day one, and to go down range if and when needed
for the current mission.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good episode.
Yeah. Great. That's our show. We're out of time. I don't know. I just made that up. But
we have all the time.
Thanks for sticking around, if you're still sticking around. And we'll see you next time.